welcome to yet another roundtable episode from your Film Sack host. Yes, that's right. Someone's out of town, and as a result, we pre-record this and we talk like good friends around a table about an aspect of filmmaking that doesn't come up on a regular episode when we focus in on a film. So we're excited to do it.
You're in a very comfortable chair, and there's a big ficus next to you.
That's right.
I'll be in town. I'll just be on a bike, and I can't do the show.
That's right.
That's the deal.
Yeah. Too much huffing and puffing when we try to do it.
I'll be out of breath.
Huffing.
Yeah, we can't have that. But also, even though you're there right this second, we hope that you're having an amazing ride. You know,
And I hope so too.
Yeah.
I hope I am not tipped over in a ditch and like a turtle. I can't get back up.
Yeah. If I didn't know you, I would hope that had happened, because it's funny when I don't know you. Right.
Because it's a great story.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's a great story. But anyway, we'll see how it all turns out. In the meantime, it's me, it's Brian, and it's Randy here once again to talk about something cool in the entertainment world / business of filmmaking, like soundtracks. Hey, Randy, why don't you give us the lowdown on the overall today? What are we discussing?
So a couple weeks ago, we're talking about women-led action movies, and the subject of music somehow came up alongside all of this, and we realized that there's actually like 3 distinct categories of movies with regard to the music in the movies. And so the one that I think is the most interesting, or at least right now, is the idea of a soundtrack movie. So what we're saying is it's a movie where there's a bunch of standalone songs that are arranged in some way to fit the movie. So the movie and the music carry each other. So this is different than orchestrated scoring, right? Which is just the score of a movie, right? And it's different than musicals, right? Musicals are movies where the songs tell the story overtly. So we're talking about that third thing, soundtrack movies. And so we're kind of like looking at a big long list of them. And I want to know what this means to you. What does it do in your life? It's kind of a newer thing. Like soundtrack movies haven't been that prevalent until the last 40 years or so.
Sure.
And so, you know, like just like the first thing on the list that came up was 8 Mile, the movie 8 Mile, right?
Oh, yeah. Can't separate the two, right? Is baked in.
I mean, I don't know. I'd go back. I'd say Star Wars is my first soundtrack movie, and I know it's orchestrated and not, full of songs.
Right. So we're not
and
talking
stuff.
about that. We're not talking about that.
Not score films, but
Right.
Yeah, which are great. Like, I love one of my favorites, Man Standing, with Ry Cooder doing all kinds of cool shit. But I think, I think that I kind of dismissed that one as well.
What was the name? Ryan who? Who was that again?
Ry Cooder.
Oh, Ry Cooter. I don't know who that is. Never heard of that.
He's got
name.
a dry cooter.
Yeah. oh, all right.
No,
Dude, never tell me the odds. Anyway,
so let me give you another example. The Breakfast Club is often referred to in this discussion because you have these songs that are played to effect, right? And it's not just "Don't You Forget About Me" at the end, right? But it's
even though it is,
it's I'm the dude, and it's
right.
We're Not Alone
by what's her face,
Carla DeVito,
DeVito, yeah. She was a staple on a lot of I feel like she was a staple on a lot of soundtrack movies.
Does something go ahead.
A soundtrack movie, you can get an album and you can listen to songs.
Yeah,
and the songs are not all the same, right? They're the songs from that movie.
Does something like
different artists lots of times?
Since we just hit the 30th anniversary, does something like the Lion King animated film count?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So it's not just like a bunch of songs from different artists or whatever. It can be like a musical where they've got, music from.
See, and I wouldn't call that this though, but it sounds like Randy would, because you've got The Circle of Life, Elton John, but you don't really have other songs.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
you have Hakuna Matata, and you have,
good point. Yeah, of course.
They're all sung.
Lion King is both. Like Lion King, and I want to rule out, say, The Sound of Music, right? Because it was a musical, and then, but at the same time, The Sound of Music provides us with a great template for this, because my mom had the album, she had the LP, and you could listen to the tracks, and you could like pick a track and listen to it, and it was a good standalone song.
Sure,
I think probably a good representation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe a good representation is either movies that have music that has charted, tops of the charts at some point in time, or has music that comes out of it that tops the charts, because a lot of these, stuff like that just seems more like maybe it permeates into the popular culture beyond the movie.
That's interesting.
I personally think of soundtrack movies, I always think of Top Gun, because everyone I knew, every household I went to in a certain time frame had the Top Gun record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the vinyl probably. Yeah, the Pulp Fiction. We talked a lot about Pulp Fiction last week, but that's another great one with Urge Overkill's "You'll Be a Woman Soon"
and Reservoir Dogs. The
Reservoir
soundtrack
Dogs too.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs. Was very
Tarantino's great.
Right, doing narration like the DJ between each track, and he mispronounces Behemoth as Behemoth.
Yeah,
Behemoth.
Do you think it
you
counts?
say mispronounces? I say does it
intentionally.
Yeah.
Well, it probably is intentional.
Ibit, do you count things like Dick Dale's thing? His
Yeah, that's a cover too. That's an old German or not a Greek old Greek song that he adapted into a surf rock song.
Oh my gosh, he did it very well, because that's all I think of.
That's when you hear Miserly, you associate it with Dick Dale more than anybody else. But that's
oh yeah
just because it's an instrumental, I feel like it's still Pulp Fiction is still a classic soundtrack album. For me, a soundtrack album is one where the movie's longevity extends far beyond the 2 hours you watch it, into hearing the soundtrack over and over and thinking about the soundtrack, the parts of the movie that associate with the soundtrack. Baby Driver, which we just watched a few weeks ago, that soundtrack, or that collection of songs, because I don't even think there's an official soundtrack. You go to Apple Music, you get a playlist with a few extra
that makes me
EP
mad.
songs.
That makes me mad
because it gives you more of an opportunity to explore the albums that each of those songs came from. So it's like, oh, I love this Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers song, Egyptian Reggae. Let me go back and listen to some more Jonathan Richman while I'm in the mood.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is a fantastic soundtrack movie.
So in the case of 8 Mile, which is mostly Eminem music, maybe entirely, I don't know. There's other stuff on there that I can't think of. Maybe anyway, that works then, right? So if you have something like Purple Rain, or
that's perfect.
Okay,
that's one.
Purple
artist,
Rain was the first one that came to mind, and then I saw that it was number 1 on the list that Randy gave to us.
I don't want to be predictable.
Exactly. Right. I'm actually in the middle of listening to Purple Rain because it's the 40th anniversary of the album, and I'm doing a show on Coverville. I mean, last week I did a show on Coverville where I covered each of the tracks, track by track, with different artists.
Sure.
And I can answer Scott's question. The 8 Mile soundtrack, the album that you can still purchase and listen to, has songs by Mobb Deep, Leonard Skinner, Notorious B.I.G., South Central Cartel, Montel Jordan, Naughty by Nature.
Okay, a lot more than just his.
Yeah.
In the moment, that whole thing. Like, there's a lot more than just that.
I'm glad you expanded on that. Thank you for that.
That's wonderful.
Never let it go. Mom spaghetti, something. Yeah, that whole thing.
I was waiting for that to come up.
Yeah. So I like his new track, by the way. I know this is
great.
A lot of Gen Zs don't like it.
Best
like
use of Abracadabra by
including the original, because I freaking hate that song, but somehow it works here. It's real good.
Yeah.
He's good at that. But okay, how do we feel about something like one of my favorites is Dazed and Confused. And the reason I love that one is because the music serves one very specific and important role, and that is to keep this thing in the place that it's set. Yeah. It's like, here is the time, here is the place. There's no confusion. You're hearing Low Rider. You know what the F's going on. You don't ever get confused and go, is this set in the late 90s? Like, you never do that. You know exactly what we got, and I love that about that movie.
And it's a bigger soundtrack than movie, I think. Right? Like, if you get the Dazed and Confused soundtrack, you're getting Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith and School's Out by Alice Cooper and Why Can't We Be Friends by War. Why can't we? And by the way, these are all songs that I think are probably appear in plenty of other movies. But put them all together, and you've got a soundtrack that you're going to listen to repeatedly.
So
I don't
good.
think you're going to watch Days of Confused repeatedly.
Oh, I love that movie. I would watch it again, no problem. So I don't know if I agree with you there, but I will. You know, the soundtrack plays a heavy role. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
There's some movies, like maybe that's even an interesting subset of discussion here. Some movies that are so propelled better or made better because they chose to put so much tapestry in the music that without it, you're like, ugh, I don't know if I want that movie to be around. You know, and maybe Days.
I'm making notes here. So I got Ibbott with Purple Rain, Scott with Dazed and Confused.
I'm not gonna make.
I'm not doing that.
My choices. Yeah. I've got two other choices that I like better, and neither of them are on that ranker list, by the way.
Oh, good.
So
Me too.
So
Me
unlike
too.
unlike the last round table, you can't tell me that my choices are wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I would never do that.
Yeah.
I also have.
I forgot about
I have
that.
one I
That was a
just
great
saw
time.
that I'm going to put on this list that no one's going to see coming. I can't wait to say it. But go ahead. Continue.
I've got several, but I have one that's right on the cusp of the two, and it was a huge impact on me. When I think of these, I think of not only things that I enjoyed and maybe had some chart topping hits, but also severely impacted either my enjoyment or lack of enjoyment of the movie. And I've got to say that Ghostbusters soundtrack, I mean, even though Ray Parker Jr. totally stole that, Ghostbusters, Magic, I was just listening to that a couple of months ago by Mick Smiley. Never really did anything again. But I love
magic.
Magic.
The cleaning up the town by the
cleaning up
boys.
the town. Yes.
The Ghetto Boys?
And even,
what is there? Not the Ghetto Boys. What is that?
The Bus Boys. The Bus Boys.
Bus Boys. Yes.
Yeah. And even the second movie had some pretty good songs to it. And I feel like it's very important, especially that Magic song in the freaking Ghostbusters.
Yes.
That's like a turn, man.
Because you hear that song and you think of the montage of them when they're going around and dealing with all the ghosts, because that's when it comes up. And
so good.
That's also the soundtrack that gives us Flip City by Glenn Frey, which is I think the only place you're gonna find that song.
Oh yeah,
I really love it.
I do love it when a soundtrack includes a song that you can't find anywhere else on any other albums by that artist.
Right.
I'll give you one of those then. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the soundtrack.
It's a good one. Yep.
And you get your classics like Somebody's Baby and Oingo Boingo gives you Goodbye Goodbye, which was, if I remember correctly, not released on an album, but was eventually released on the Oingo Boingo EP. But God, that's such a great, that album gives you so many 80s hits, one right after another. And for me, hearing that album only makes me think of the scenes.
There is apparently a Criterion Collection version of Fast Times. And I am kind of interested here.
It's an important movie.
I would like to watch this with the
movie.
With the, because like Amy Heckerling and Cameron Crowe telling you what the hell? Okay.
Oh, I know. And they talk about, they say how, and I was going to bring up the cars moving in stereo. If you were a boy growing up in the 80s and you think of that song, you only think of Phoebe Cates coming out of the swimming pool. But they were talking, that's the Amy Heckerling and Cameron Crowe discussion where they talk about how at Blockbuster Video, they would constantly have to replace the VHS tapes of Fast Times because people would pause on that scene and the stretching of the tape would cause it to go, you look the same, you're walking in stereo. People would pause on that one scene of Phoebe Cates undoing her top.
Yeah. I want to go ahead and declare Cameron Crowe the winner of this category. Cameron Crowe is the person who has worked the hardest to soundtrack his movies.
I'd put what's his name in there too, since John Hughes. Since Scott Pilgrim. We just watched Baby Driver. Edgar Wright. Yeah, I'd put him in the running. I think he really works hard to get music as part of his movies, no matter what the movie is. Here is my other one. So this is my second for me, and I just saw it. And I was blown away by the soundtrack. Holdovers, I thought was amazing.
Oh, that is such a great movie and a soundtrack.
And it's something about it's a movie that knows when it wants to be, so it works very hard to make you feel like you're there. And the music is so reminiscent of that 1971 era-ish thing that it just takes me it takes me places I haven't felt since I was a tiny baby, like just a little kid, like a 3-year-old kid.
I mean, and it also has a bunch of Christmas music, and Christmas music is a subgenre of the subgenre here.
Yeah.
And so, like, we definitely want to allow holdovers, but don't think too much about Christmas music in this
Well,
context.
the movie has there is some. Yes, I will give holdovers more credit though, because it only has 2 cases of where it's playing Christmas music, and it's not at a party or something where it's playing in the scene. So they don't actually shove it down your throat, even though it's all set around Christmas. It's mostly these like hits, but also weird songs I've never heard of from 1970, 1971. Yeah. And they just, I don't know, man, they paint a picture. It's really, that movie freaking was so good, dude. I loved it. Took too long to watch it. Finally watched it and loved it.
I don't want to skip too quickly past Scott Pilgrim versus the World, because it is a giant in this genre. Just the I have listened to the 2 songs on that soundtrack from Sex Bob-omb many times. They're just awesome originals, right? And then there's all of these other there's Plum Tree is on this album, and Frank Black is on this album.
It's really good. That one is probably I don't know, probably top 5 tier if you were objectively to look at it all. Let's go back to it, but what's another one for you?
Second choice for me, a movie whose soundtrack was so good and so full of great songs that they had to actually release 2 volumes, 2 separate albums of soundtrack music, and it's a favorite of Scott's, movie-wise, Grosse Pointe Blank.
Oh, shit! I totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
you know what? I know we're not allowed to share the same list, but I'm on my little wagon. I'm going to hook onto this one from Brian.
You can totally, I'll allow it. Yeah, I mean, your Blister in the Sun, The Clash, Rudy Can't Fail, Mirror in the Bathroom, English Beat, and then they had to release a second volume because there were so many good songs that were included on the first one. So the second one has War Cry by Joe Strummer, White Lines by Grandmaster Flash, Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen. It's a great pair of soundtracks.
How many soundtracks did they release for Guardians of the Galaxy? Was it just one per? Because
one per movie, and I didn't want to use that as a cheat because there's that the soundtrack to those films is another character in the films. Mr. Blue Sky is a character in that opening part of Guardians 2, and Come and Get Your Love. When Star-Lord is walking across the planet and kicking little critters.
Very Cameron Crowe-esque.
Yeah,
it is. It totally is.
Great call on that.
The scene with Yondu and the zinging the air around, killing all of the Reavers or whatever it is. I know we just been watching a lot of Firefly, but
whatever they're called, and
it's come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man. I can't remember the name of the song, but those songs, again, when you hear those songs from that soundtrack, now it's all you can think of. I can't hear "Come and Get Your Love" without thinking of Peter Quill.
It's been rewritten.
No,
overwritten.
It's not just that. I think the movie thrives. The series thrives on the fact that this choice was made. I think if you just made a straight science, even if you had some of the comedy and the fun of Guardians and the great directing and acting and all that, if you do that without this soundtrack, it's less of a movie. It's not. It's
the character.
Well.
Yeah, it really adds to it. To me, it's like when you whoever first put kind of westerny music in science fiction, like a kind of cowboy music. It wasn't Firefly does it, but they weren't the first. They
Outland maybe,
but those kinds of things where you add a little guitar twang to a ship going off in the nowhere land, like the minute you made westerns and science fiction work together, that was a permanent thing. And I feel like this happened a bit with those movies, with the Guardians movies. You just, if you're going to have cosmic Marvel, you now are stuck with this, or you do it wrong if you don't have it. Like you have to have it. So you're right. That is a really powerful combo. I love that. It's really good.
Randy, how does Daft Punk's Tron Legacy fit into this? Is this
I feel like that's a great example. It's absolutely great.
I don't know. It almost feels musical.
It is.
It does feel score-like, yeah.
But there are some tracks in there, like the bar track for the bar place.
Yeah.
It is such a
So
great
it hit the
standalone
charts, too.
song, and it did. It still does. People love that.
Yeah.
And it so supersedes the quality of the film, although I think I was too judgmental back when it came out. I watched it recently. I think a couple of us did. Maybe Ibbot did.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
I came away.
Then I continued on with that weird animated series from MTV.
Oh, right. the weird body shapes.
Yes.
Stories were good, but the animation of that was so weird.
Animation's so wackadoo.
Yeah. But that movie's way better than I ever gave it credit for, but also the soundtrack just holds the F up. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like if those guys are going to retire, fine. But don't retire from film scoring. Keep doing that.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Take off your helmet.
Danny Elfman, like keep film scoring.
Yeah.
Even if you're not going to release any more like pop albums, for sure.
Yeah, and if you're going to keep wearing helmets, fine. If you want to, if you want people to think you're 20 but you're really 62, that's fine. Do whatever you got to do. But
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, we don't mind.
I really like how some movies go to a particular time frame, and then the soundtrack for the movie takes you back to that. So, like, Almost Famous is a good example.
Yeah,
Almost Famous takes place in the early 70s, mid 70s, or whatever. Rock is dead, but the whole score is this sort of like really typically mid 70s rock. And it just like takes you right there. Dirty Dancing, right? Takes place in I want to say the mid 50s.
That's a great one. Yeah.
And then,
but a lot of those songs changed after the movie Dirty Dance came out. It's like I can't unassociate the two. So that's really cool.
I could be off here because like the first song that came to mind from Dirty Dancing was Big Girls Don't Cry by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. That might have been early 60s now that I think about it.
For me, that album, if I skip the brand new song, the I've Had Time of My Life, then it's almost a perfect soundtrack for me. But I can't.
You got it.
It's so pandering, and it's like, hey, let's get together and create a song that feels like it would have been part of that soundtrack. No, I can't do it.
I need things.
You do?
I hate that song so much. I hate
it. Sign me up every time.
The movie opens with "Be My Baby" by the Ronettes, and that becomes the sound of the opening of a movie. Like Dirty Dancing establishes a thing, just like Breakfast Club established the end of a movie sound of a song, right? And like that's a really cool thing. Like some of these soundtrack movies are making a new thing for you to enjoy and think about when it comes to movies.
How do we feel about my next pick? This will finish my top three. So we got Dazed and Confused, Holdovers, and for me the big winner is one that will not be like those other two at all. It's Moulin Rouge. I cannot get enough of the Moulin Rouge soundtrack. Now it is
the mashups stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a musical, right? Like it fits into two categories at once. But the cover, they're basically cover. Everything's a cover.
Yeah,
and they're done in these crazy styles and these different things, and then in some cases, like you said, mashup or medleys. That are so. To me, I hear those songs and I immediately am taken to a very specific place with that movie, and I love it. And that's another example of that. Is that movie is shit without this decision?
Well,
it's not.
And it's a case where some of these songs are way better than others, and that's an okay thing, right? Like these great soundtrack movies do not need to be a dozen perfect songs. Some of them can be kind of funny, kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Sure.
And so like what's the actress who sings "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend"?
Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman.
She's not perfect. Ewan McGregor as a singer is not perfect, but like that's okay. That's perfectly fine. It's a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Since Scott did his third one, do I get to do my second one now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were on your second. I thought you already did it. My bad. My bad. You go.
I've only done Ghostbusters, right? Right, Randy?
Ghostbusters, yeah. What else?
All right. Then I'm going to go next up. I'm going to go with just because I'm of that generation. It's not my fault. Don't judge me.
Minority Report. Oh, I'm sorry. But
no, screw that crap. Yeah. The Faculty. I loved the soundtrack to The Faculty.
One. Yeah.
It's a really good soundtrack. Got the Alice in Chains, Another Brick in the Wall.
Another Brick in the Wall. Great cover of that on there.
Yeah, got The Kids Are All Right from the Offspring. Great place to put it in this movie. This movie thrives on this music. All these kids are very much of that age. School's Out from a Soul Asylum.
Yeah, and it was a
Yeah.
time before we all hated Creed. Like Creed was fine.
Yeah. I'm 18. Creed's fine. I don't hate Creed. Never. People annoyed with Creed. How about that?
I don't like Creed,
People hate
but I don't hate them. I just don't seek them out.
Yeah.
There's an Oasis song on
Indifferent
it.
to Creed.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the Oasis song is good too.
Oasis is all right. They had a moment. I really liked Oasis in their heyday before they started fighting.
Stabbing Westward.
Yeah, stuff was good. Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. I like that movie too. Didn't Jon Stewart get a pencil in the eyeball in The Faculty? Yeah,
Nailed it.
yeah,
No, just like that pencil in his eyeball.
yeah. That
What
movie was
gross
great.
got out the most?
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
This
yeah.
has been a huge subject throughout my life because I grew up around music people. Like my first hi-fi was a hand-me-down from my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is like
Like you
16
call it a
years older
hi-fi.
than me. Yeah, because it was.
That's because it was.
And,
Had it written on it.
And because my sister and her husband were so much older than me, I was constantly being given like, oh, here's a record they don't want anymore, or they got 2 copies of the same record. I was constantly given things, and this is a way that I came into appreciating movies. Like I said, the Top Gun soundtrack seemed to be everywhere, and the first time in my life that I watched a movie, heard the music, bought the record, and felt like it was truly my own. This was not handed down to me. This was not recommended to me, but it was just truly my own, was the Cameron Crowe movie Singles in 1992.
Yeah,
And it came out a few months after Pearl Jam's first album, which the movie included some Pearl Jam that I had never heard before. And it also included a bunch of things I'd never heard before. Like, even though Pearl Jam came from Mother Love Bone, I had never heard Mother Love Bone before. And hearing them in Singles made me go get Mother Love Bone.
Yes.
And it made me go buy Paul Westerberg's album. And it made me go buy Alice in Chains' album. And it all came from there.
Then you're listening to Day of the Dog and like, what happened? How'd this happen? I don't know.
Yeah. And so Singles was a really big deal for my precise generation, the people who happened to be in that watching that scene and wanting to hear more and more of that kind of music.
Yeah.
And it really solidified for me even that movies should occasionally do this.
Yeah.
Be as much about the music as anything.
Yeah, I think I'm no expert on human beings, but I feel like humans are uniquely we are uniquely positioned for music, right? We don't, nobody else hears music. Maybe there's some birds and stuff that do, and maybe stuff we don't understand about some of the animal kingdom, but we're the only mammals that music affects so deeply. So why wouldn't you want that to be a bigger part? I mean, back to the John Williams thing. Yes, we can't really count it for today's category, all the films he did, but I don't think most of the movies he's done would be anywhere near as good as they are without it. Like, it is such an important tapestry, and whether that's songs and a soundtrack or it's a beautiful score or whatever, when that stuff's done right and it melds so well with what you're watching, whether it be, something like Jurassic Park is absolutely elevated by that soundtrack, versus if it wasn't in there. Like, I just don't know. I don't know why this isn't a more of a priority. And then sometimes the absence of music, though, can be just as powerful. No Country for Old Men has no soundtrack of any kind, and it's incredibly effective. So it's weird how we are both emotionally impacted by music and the absence of it.
In the absence of music, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to just name one more, my favorite soundtrack movie of all time. And to get there, I have to recognize that there are filmmakers who are just kind of copying Cameron Crowe, like Zach Braff, right? When he makes Garden State, he's just kind of, not only is he copying what Cameron Crowe does, he has a character literally say, "Listen to this, it'll change your life." And like, it's too much, right? But for my money, the best soundtrack movie ever is 50 First Dates, the Peter Segal, Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore movie. When Peter Segal
reggae covers,
when Peter Segal went to put some music into this movie, he realized that he was able to get some people like Wayne Wonder to cover "Hold Me Now," and There's Elon covers "Slave to Love" and this kind of thing, and it's got some straight reggae, right? It's just got some Bob Marley songs. It's got one of his children. Let's just say Ziggy Marley's got a song on there. It's amazing. It's such a good soundtrack, and it elevates the movie, and it's why the reason it's my favorite is because that's a pretty good rom-com that is dragged up to the highest peaks by the quality of the music. And then, of course, having said that, you can't get this soundtrack. Try your best. It's just not freaking available.
I still have it. I do have it on CD, but
I got the CD back in the day, and there
are some that never had an official soundtrack. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because of the Beatles rights, and that's another. It's funny. Mirror in the Bathroom also in that one too. And Edge of Forever by the Dream Academy, of course, Twist and Shout, the Beatles song. That's the reason that they had such a hard time getting a soundtrack out for that thing. So a lot of people have made their own Ferris Bueller soundtrack out of a playlist. Yeah. And it's
I can't explain 51st Dates. I think it's a combination of like when you have to pay No Doubt and Jason Mraz and Seal and 311. Like I think that's probably where the problem is. But like this soundtrack isn't on Spotify, and I don't think it ever will be. But if you can grab the CD and listen to it, man, it's my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't understand why, like the songs can all, well, that's just the streaming world we live in, but these songs can all exist as separate songs. Yeah. And so people making custom playlists on YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, they do, right? You can find anything. Like if you're like, where's that old soundtrack I love? Well, here it is. But why sometimes you'll find the soundtracks themselves and they're missing like 8 tracks. They'll be grayed out, even though those tracks are available. Yeah, but it's just digital. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Why does it matter if it's available digital from the original artist studio album or on this soundtrack?
Yeah.
Same reason why I have to look at posters with one actor's name over top of another because of left to right, because one got published, got one side kind of rights, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't care. Just put the right name above the right people's faces.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's very weird, but
yeah,
it's fine. I'm not going to complain.
The 51st Dates album has a Dryden Mitchell cover of Friday I'm in Love by The Cure. And I always wonder, are The Cure out there preventing this from being reprinted? I don't know. It might be.
I'm sure. I can doubt it. I feel like Robert Smith, because those guys would contribute to every tribute album you put out there. It's like, we're doing a Jimi Hendrix tribute album. Oh, we'd like to be part of that. So I don't feel like they would. But then again,
I don't know if this is a story or not, but I was watching something recently. I don't remember about Eminem. I don't remember. Anyway, for some reason, Michael Jackson purchased Eminem's library or something, and so then he was like effing with him or something like that.
Really?
So is that kind of the case too?
Really?
Yeah, Michael Jackson back in the day. I don't know if this is a true story. I can't source all this material because I just remember seeing it in brief in some other kind of show I was watching. I was like, oh, is that a fact? Is that a rock fact?
I've never heard of that. I knew he bought the Beatles music, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying that's still how it goes because I'm pretty sure Michael Jackson doesn't own anything right now, but
no, I don't think he
argue with that.
Yeah, I think his family, his estate might, but I don't think
that's different.
Well, I think that brings us to the end here. We want to hear Dunaway's third, though.
I get to do my third?
Well, that's why I was saying let's let Dunaway do his third before you interrupted me. Hey, Brian Dunaway, do you want to do your third? Do your third.
I don't want to tell you.
No, I want you to tell us. That was why I was saying it.
I just figured, hey, here's my third pick. Another weird one. When I saw this movie and I heard the music they included with it, I was like, this is dumb. But then later on, I really loved it. And it's A Knight's Tale. And they used a bunch of like Queen songs and Bowie songs and just a weird pick of songs for an historically inaccurate time, right? For
absolutely great example for us to finish on too, because it's got the songs. Like It's got BTOs taking care of business, and it's got War's Lowrider. Like, it's the songs, and it's just a fun collection of music.
Yeah.
It's a great pick.
It's good stuff. Did anybody have any others they wanted to fart out before we go?
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou deserves a mention because it's
good one.
It's another one that's good, and it's one of those that where you've got, again, everything was so good in that they toured with the soundtrack. Like all of the artists went on tour and performed the songs from the soundtrack. You could go see the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou tour, and then they released a soundtrack of the tour. So snake eating itself kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, and they would play scenes from the movie on a big screen behind them.
Oh, would they really? Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool.
And so like people would come out on stage, and it was like, here's James Carter and the Prisoners, and they're playing music for you.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, there's a bunch of like I can't think of his name all of a sudden. Wes Anderson movies that I think deserve to be on this list, but your mileage may vary. Royal Tannenbaum's probably my favorite in terms of soundtrack, but all right.
Yeah, well, I actually feel like Oh Brother is an awesome example of you kind of know of a person because of a great movie soundtrack. And it's Alison Krauss, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that example. And there are some soundtracks that make a person. Like I say, Singles, there's no way without the movie Singles that I or most people would have ever heard of Paul Westerberg. But Paul Westerberg, like, kills it, in that thing.
That's how I discovered Smashing Pumpkins, was that Drown song from the Singles soundtrack, and I love the first 3 minutes of that song, and I hate the last minute and a half.
Why
of
do
just
they end
guitar
with
feedback.
noise?
Yeah,
it's just noise.
Well done, everybody. This is great. I'm in the mood now to go listen to a bunch of soundtracks for real. I'm going to do it.
Cool.
I'm going to start with
that's what we hoped.
I'm going to start with that Dazed and Confused, and I'll move from there. Well, there you go, everybody. Let us know what you think about our picks. Send in your own. We'd love to hear what you think. You can send them to filmsack@gmail.com, or you can text them in at 801-471-0462. And you're feeling brave, you can leave a voicemail there as well. Ooh. We'll be back next week with, I forgot the movie. What are we
Mighty
doing?
Ducks.
Mighty Ducks.
Yeah,
Mighty Ducks.
We're back on the Emilio Estevez train next week.
Yeah,
so.
why not?
Yeah, who else is in that matters? I can't think of anybody.
Howard and Daffy.
A bunch of very strong
Donald.
ducks, apparently.
All the Disney ducks are in attendance.
Right.
And
there's
Warner
actually
Brothers.
some really good stories of a couple of the actors who went on to run into some problems and are more recently recovering from it. So
very nice. All right. Yeah. We'll do all of that and more. That'll be next week right here on FilmSack. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. I don't know why I said watching, but sure.
Watching.